The map of Johnny Goitom's journey is drawn in scars. The marks when he left Eritrea, the beatings in Sinai, and the wounds when he crossed into Israel, where he's lived since 2009.
I feel like I belong here because this is where I am. I placed my foot here, I am here.
Hello?
Goitom has built a life here, but his family, like thousands of others here, face deportation. He speaks to me in fluent Hebrew.
They don't want refugees here. They tell you, you're not a refugee, you just came for work. They just don't believe you.
Israel has vowed to remove some 38,000 illegal immigrants within months, offering to pay them to leave. Most are from Eritrea and Sudan, two of the biggest sources of refugees in the world. Fleeing war and poverty, they traveled north through Egypt, turning east to pass through Sinai. More than 1,000 crossed the border into Israel each month until the Israeli army sealed the route with a fence in 2013. The Immigration Authority here says it has received more than 50,000 asylum requests in the last decade. Some 3,600 from Eritrea have been rejected. Just 8 have been accepted. Less than 1%, among the lowest rates in the Western world. Israel calls them infiltrators.
We are not acting against refugees. We're acting against illegal migrants who come here, not as refugees, but for work needs. Israel will continue to offer asylum for genuine refugees and will remove illegal migrants from its midst.
South Tel Aviv is ground zero for this fight, and Shefi Paz, a grassroots activist, is on the front line.
We feel here completely strangers. And it's a kind of occupation or invasion.
We stroll around her neighborhood at night. The polished shine of the tech hub glimmers in the distance. She says this no longer feels like Israel and wants to see these recent arrivals return to their countries, the vast majority from countries the U.S. labels human rights violators.
I really need a Jewish country, and my parents were Holocaust survivors. That's my conclusion from the Holocaust. Not that I have to give a home for the world, but that I need to fight for my country.
Others draw a different lesson from the Holocaust. Reut Michaeli works to help Africans apply for asylum. Her parents entered British Mandate Palestine in 1941, illegally. She says a nation built by Jewish refugees cannot turn away others.
Israel was one of the initiators of the Refugee Convention, and the fact that Israel will deport people to a third country without taking even a little piece of responsibility is not moral, not to mention that it's against our Jewish values as a refugee nation.
In nearby Levinsky Park, I meet Awet Asheber from Eritrea. This is where Israel first brought many of those fleeing Eritrea and Sudan. Even after 10 years in Israel, Asheber's goal has never changed.
Tomorrow, the next day, it doesn't matter when. The day our country has peace, we will go back. That's what we're waiting for, but no one is going to bring us peace.
As Israel has pressured these families to leave, peace has been hard to find here in the Promised Land. It just wasn't promised to them. Oren Liebermann, CNN, Tel Aviv.
Well, those deportation letters being sent today tell migrants that Israel has signed agreements allowing them to leave for an unnamed country, which Israel has already received thousands of people from. And they said, and I quote, "In recent years, it has been showing some of the highest economic growth figures in Africa, thanks to exports to Europe and the United States, as well as to the flourishing tourism industry. This country enjoys stability in its region, which has contributed to developments in many fields, including education, medicine, and infrastructure." Well, let's bring in Monim Haroun, an asylum seeker from Sudan. He fled Darfur as a boy, then had to leave Sudan altogether as a young man. And since he was a student activist protesting against the Sudanese government, well, he joins me now live from Jerusalem. Really good to have you with us. I understand you were a refugee from Darfur. You've been living in Israel for 6 years. Just explain how you feel facing a government who wants to deport you.
Hi, thank you for having me. I guess it's really disturbing and disappointing to flee such a disturbing condition in Darfur or in Sudan in general, and come to the country that claims a democratic country, and it's deny you to get your basic rights of human being to be protected from a regime such as the Sudanese regime. It's really hard to be a refugee in Israel, even though we are just asking for a temporary protection until we will be able to go back to our country, to back then in Sudan or Eritrea.
And I understand that you applied for asylum years ago and you never even got a response. The government in Israel calls you an infiltrator. Is that dehumanizing?
Yes, actually, that's really devastating. I asked for asylum 5 years ago, and until now I didn't get a response. The government are not willing to respond to my case or to my asylum request, and instead they call me infiltrator. Yes, actually that is dehumanize me as a human being, because for me it's just ignorance to the situation that I fled. Because if we ask the question, is the situation in Darfur or Rumba Mountain or Blue Nile is normal? Is the genocide that the government of Sudan is committing is normal? So I fled such a condition and situation in order to save my life. And here they are calling me infiltrator. Yeah, actually that's really disturbing.
And not only calling you an infiltrator, but I understand that at one point you were jailed for being an illegal immigrant. Just give us a sense of what it's like living in Israel. What are the biggest challenges you've faced since arriving?
Yes, when I just arrived to Israel, they told me that I should be in jail for 3 years, then I should be deported back to my country, the place that I fled. So I told them my life is in danger there, and they will probably kill me if you will deport me back to my country. So I can't go back. And instead they put me in jail, in closed jail for 18 months. And it was really challenging and very hard term to be there, because it's just ignorance, knowing that you fled in order to save your life, and here they don't recognize that. So it was the lack of recognition, the lack of solidarity. And at the same time, when I was in jail, I lost my mom because of the war there in Darfur. It was really challenging to be in jail, and also to be an asylum seeker in Israel.
I'm so sorry to hear that. You've been through such heartache. What does your future hold? Have you received a deportation letter? And if so, what will happen? Where will you go?
Not yet. I didn't receive the deportation letter, but there's others from my community who received the deportation letter. And again, it's really shameful on Israel to do this on refugees. And for me, it's meaning that Israel is denying the history of Jewish. Because if we will say that we fled such a difficult condition, and here we can't get protection from the Israeli government or Israeli country, so that means Israel is denying their own history as a Jewish being suffered for everywhere in the world, and being refugees everywhere in the world. And again, it's really disturbing, because sending back to a served country, that means to be deported to Uganda or Rwanda. This is the country that the Israeli government deported many of asylum seekers to there. But the problem is that these countries are denied to have agreement with Israel. They said they have no such agreement with Israel to receive asylum seekers from Israel. So that means we are not going to get protection there, even in those countries.
And as I understand it, Israel introduced a law mid last year saying they would take 20% of your pay packet and only give it back to you once you left the country. Will you take that money? Will you leave? Is there a place that you would go?
Actually, this is not the issue of the money. Yes, Israel did that. They took 20% of asylum seekers, of African asylum seekers' salaries. And this is the law in Israel. But the issue is that you are comparing between your life and the money. So for sure you will choose to stay alive. And even though the alternative here in Israel is to be in jail forever. So we have only two choices, or being deported to a third country that we could face death, or another journey of being refugee or being in jail in Israel. So I don't think the people will choose to leave Israel, because we already know the consequences of the deportation, because we have many of our friends who have been deported to a third country. They had to flee again to Europe, and some of them, unfortunately, were being in slavery in Libya, and some of them were killed by ISIS in Libya as well.
Yeah, no amount of money is worth more than your life, as you put it so well. Manim, Haroon, we really appreciate your time today, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for having me, and I just want to add like a small sentence that I really, when I was an activist in Sudan, I was calling for a democratic, liberal country, the country that treats all its citizens equally. But now I have a wider perspective of human rights. So really, I wanted to be able to go back to my country and be able to build a democratic country, a liberal country that respect human rights and save the human dignity.
Manim, Haroon, great to have you with us, and thank you very much.